Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update on the current situation in Spain, and it seems like Spain's love-hate relationship with the vaccine AstraZeneca has come to an end, but more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation. You can see your names here. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your continuing support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, Spain's relationship with the AstraZeneca vaccine appears to have come to an end. As I said before, it has been a love-hate relationship, as they say in Spanish, amor-odio, and yesterday the government announced that they will no longer receive doses of AstraZeneca. As we can see here, Spain will not receive any more of AstraZeneca's coronavirus vaccines. Spain will stop receiving and administering doses of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine, as reported on Monday by Cadena Ser and confirmed by health sources. AstraZeneca has only been administered to the 60 to 69 age group, and Spain's autonomous communities have enough doses to immunize all people in this age group against the coronavirus and do not need more. According to the information provided, if any more doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine were needed to complete the vaccination of this age group, the ministry would request them and they would be supplied. So there we go, Spain saying goodbye to the AstraZeneca vaccine and no more doses required apparently. And as we all know, Spain has had a rocky relationship with this vaccine. Now, another autonomous community in Spain has decided to tighten restrictions, and it is the Balearic Islands. As we can see here, the Balearic Islands tightens restrictions and recommends always wearing a mask to prevent contagion. The government of the Balearic Islands has decided on Monday to tighten restrictions to avoid crowds and thus curb the increase in infections in the archipelago, after record numbers of daily infections have been recorded, higher than those of the third wave of the pandemic in January. Among other things, penalties will be increased for botellón and illegal parties, and it will be recommended that masks should always be worn. This has been confirmed to TVE by sources from the regional government, a decision that has already been taken to the social dialogue table, where it has been agreed that the continued use of the mask will finally remain a recommendation after the government had considered making its use compulsory in all outdoor spaces. So there we go, the Balearic Islands tightening restrictions and recommending that people always wear a mask. As we saw in the article, it was rumoured yesterday that the Balearic Islands were going to make outdoor mask use again compulsory, but they decided against that, and it's now only a recommendation. And they've also decided to crack down on the botellón or street drinking parties, as apparently it's out of control there as well. Now, when it comes to COVID vaccinations here in Spain, the government yesterday announced that we have hit a milestone and more than 50% of the population are now completely vaccinated. The good pace at which the coronavirus immunization campaign, the largest in history, is progressing means that half of Spaniards have now completed the vaccination schedule. The milestone was reached at some point over the weekend, according to a report published this afternoon by the Ministry of Health. In total, 24.04 million citizens, or 50.7%, have received the 2 necessary doses of the Pfizer, Moderna and AstraZeneca vaccines, or the single dose required for the Janssen vaccine. And if we have a look at a breakdown of vaccination in the different autonomous communities here in Spain, we can see that Asturias has the highest percentage of people vaccinated at 62.4%, and the Canary Islands is the autonomous community with the least amount of people vaccinated, with 46.5%. Now, if we have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, we can see that the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days is just under 600. Daily cases are up 190% on previous data. There are currently 6,482 people hospitalized around the country with COVID, and there are still 1,039 COVID patients in ICU. If we have a look at Spain's main hotspot, Catalonia, we can see that their accumulated incidence rate is now up to 1,233. If we have a look at the autonomous community in Spain with the lowest incidence rate, Castilla-La Mancha, we can see there that it is 216. When it comes to the vaccination campaign, as we just saw, 50.67% of the population now completely vaccinated, and 62.14% of the population with at least 1 dose. Now, on the topic of the price of electricity in Spain, unfortunately it continues to soar, and today the price of electricity will soar to 101 euros, its highest level since 2002. The price of electricity is once once again hitting maximum levels and will reach its highest level in almost 20 years on Tuesday. The cost of a megawatt per hour will be just under €102, the second highest level in history, a prohibitive price that coincides with the heat wave that has hit the country, and 19 provinces are on high temperature alert, increasing the cost of running the air conditioning. The new record is now close to the one set on the 11th of January 2002, when the cost of electricity reached €103.76. That month, however, the average price stood at €61, €30 less on average than the cost recorded in the first 20 days of July. In other words, the 2002 record was an insignificant figure compared to the prolonged maintenance of the price at historic levels in July, which is what really ends up having an impact on the monthly bills of millions of households and companies. So the price of electricity seems to go up and up and up, and it seems like there is nothing the government can do to control it. Now, as we all know, yesterday was Freedom Day in England. A lot of the COVID restrictions that had been in place for the last 18 months disappeared. And according to newspaper El País, the first day without restrictions, most Britons wary of Johnson's freedom. The so-called Freedom Day has surprised more than 500,000 people in England, including its Prime Minister, who have been forced to maintain quarantine at home. The rate of infection with the Delta variant of the virus is doubling every 2 weeks, and the daily average of new infections now exceeds 50,000. Deaths are around 30 per day. The NHS's tracking and tracing system has caused chaos in offices, shops and public services, with an incessant number of people being notified that they have been in contact with someone who has tested positive and must isolate themselves for 10 days at home. Labour opposition leader Keir Starmer, usually restrained in his criticism of the government, on Monday launched one of the harshest attacks on the pandemic in living memory. He accused Johnson of promoting a reckless free-for-all that will inevitably lead to tough new social restrictions later on. So the first day without restrictions yesterday, and according to that newspaper, people in England still a little bit wary of Johnson's so-called freedom. And we'll see if the opposition leader is correct in his forecast that opening up the country will inevitably lead to more restrictions in the future. Time will tell. Now, as we know, Spain has also seen a rise in COVID infections over the last few weeks, but for some that doesn't seem to be a problem, and as we can see from this headline, Brits are still flocking to Spain's beaches. Spain reported a new jump in its COVID-19 infection rate on Monday, with 61,628 cases registered since Friday, just as fully vaccinated British holidaymakers flocked to its beaches, giving hope to the hard-hit tourism sector. Since July the 8th, when Britain announced the lifting of a 10-day quarantine for returning vaccinated tourists from July the 19th, flight bookings to Spain have increased fourfold, even though they remain far below 2019 levels, an airlines industry group said. And a tourist who had just arrived in Malaga from England said people have to get on with their lives and make their own decisions, especially if you have been vaccinated. With precautions, but, sensible. So some sound advice there from Tilly the tourist. You've got to get on with your life, especially if you have been vaccinated, but with precautions, sensible. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Evelyn. Hi Stuart, good video. I am Scottish. We don't have the same rules as England, Wales or Ireland. Yeah, Evelyn, thanks for the comment, and a lot of people pointed that out to me yesterday, that it's only England that has got rid of a lot of the restrictions. Places like Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland have still got restrictions in place, so not a lot of change in the other countries in the UK. And one of the reasons I make mistakes like that is because when I read the Spanish press, they seem to put all of the countries in the same boat. They talk about restrictions in the UK being lifted, and we get the idea here that the same things are happening in the same places at the same time. And I imagine that something similar happens there when you read stories about Spain. They report on Spain as a whole and not on the individual autonomous communities, the 17 different autonomous communities. So thanks for pointing it out. One here from Marcia. It's Freedom Day, but most of the people are still wearing masks. I travelled a lot around London and I was impressed. Minority not wearing masks. Yeah, Marcia, thanks for the comment. And I also read quite a few other comments from people saying something similar, that although the rules have changed, a lot of people are still wearing masks, social distancing, and acting like nothing has changed. And I suppose that's one of the main reasons behind the lifting of restrictions in England. Give people the choice. If you want to wear a mask, you can. If you want to social distance, you can. But if you don't have to. And I think the message from the Boris Johnson government is that even though there are no longer a lot of restrictions in place, people still have to be prudent and act with care, and if possible, avoid catching COVID-19. One here from Tobertine. Hi Stuart, have to disagree about cycling in Spain. I go every year from the UK, pandemic permitting. The roads are gloriously smooth, the weather is always agreeable, and the drivers are very respectful and polite. It may be different in big cities, I guess, but out on the coast, the cycling is tremendous. Yeah, thanks for the comment. I mentioned yesterday that in my opinion, road cycling in Spain seems to be dangerous, but you're right. I may be conditioned by the fact that I live in Madrid, the biggest city in Spain, and the situation may be completely different in some of the less populated parts of the country. To be honest, I don't know, because as I also said yesterday, I don't spend a lot of time cycling on roads in Spain. I tend to be more of a mountain biker, but I seem to remember recently reading a story that said that there are a lot of fatalities on the road when it comes to cyclists in Spain. But like I said, maybe that's because I live in the Madrid community, and if you live in a place like Cuenca, it's not an issue. One here from Sandra. I'm with you, Stuart. Politics. Just do your job and give us good, sensible, well thought out governance. Yes, Sandra, thanks for the comment. Obviously referring to something that I said yesterday when I said that I don't care about the right side of politics, I don't care about the left side of politics, I don't care about the centre, as long as politicians do a good job. And I'm with you. Sensible politics, well thought out politics, and politicians should make it easy for people to understand what they're doing, and they shouldn't be blinded by their own ideologies or bias, which unfortunately happens in Spain quite often. One here from Mark. Ola Stuart, thank you for your work on this channel. We enjoy it here in Canada. I'm thinking of learning Castellano Spanish in Spain in 2022. Do you have any recommendations? University versus private and location? Thank you. Yeah, Mark, thanks for the comment, and good to see that you are enjoying the channel there in Canada. And when it comes to learning Spanish here in Spain, I don't have too many recommendations. I think you can find good private schools to learn Spanish. You could also go to a public university here in Spain to learn Spanish. They offer courses as well. When it comes to location, I'd recommend somewhere close to where the language originated from, for example, Salamanca, Valladolid, Burgos, Zamora even, Segovia, Avila, basically anywhere in that part of the world. In fact, I'm sure you could find good language teachers and language schools in any part of the country where Castellano Spanish is the dominant language. So good luck with your Spanish adventure in 2022. One here from Bus Money. Hello Stuart, we are planning on visiting Madrid at the end of August, driving from our home in France. Is it possible to get a permit to drive in the city centre, our hotel location, prior to coming to Madrid? Either online or in Bilbao. Thank you, as we have been unable to get this info anywhere else online. Yeah, Bus Money, thanks for the comment, and to be honest, I'm not sure where you get permits to drive in the centre of Madrid, especially in areas that are restricted, resident-only areas, but I imagine that the hotel that you are booked into will be able to give you information on that. I know that in other cities that I have travelled to in Spain that have similar restrictions, normally the hotel takes care of it, or the place that you are staying. They get in contact with the local authorities and register your license plate, and then when you drive into those areas, you shouldn't have a problem. And I think it's also similar if you are going to a designated parking space in a restricted area. So as I said, contact the hotel and they should take care of it for you. And finally, one here from Barry. All UK beaches open in the UK, thousands on every beach in UK from Scarborough to Wales, and all busy, all areas taking UK money. It looked like the good old days full to the brim. Yeah, Barry, thanks for the comment, and good to see that beaches there in the UK are full, people spending money locally. And as you said, it reminded you of the good old days when people used to prefer to holiday in the UK rather than go abroad. And it's funny that you mentioned the town of Scarborough there in the UK, because the neighbouring suburb to where my parents live in Perth is also called Scarborough, and it also has a fantastic beach. I wonder if they're similar. On that note, I'll start to wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the situation out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.